Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern, and it is time to talk sales. It is time for Sales Logic Live. Hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. Mark, you are in Seattle this morning?
I'm in Seattle, so it's 5 a.m. Still dark outside, but hey, it's always a good time to talk sales, right? We got a great show. We're gonna really be talking about, hey, how do you increase your close ratio when things just aren't going right in kind of a squirrely economy? This is gonna be a good show.
All right, let's dive in. All right, welcome back to a Sales Logic podcast. Every week we come to you at 8 a.m. Eastern. We kick off with a question from you, the audience. So we really want to invite you to be a part of Sales Logic Live. Hey, Bryn, welcome to the show this morning. We discuss a hot topic. We recommend a book. And because we want you to leave with return on investment, we close with a lightning round. So, Mark, you teased a little bit as to what is on tap for today, but what are we going to dive into and what does our audience want us to talk about?
Well, the topic is how to increase your close ratio. We're going to talk about better pricing. We're going to talk about leveraging the close and how we get referrals out of it. So this is going to be a wide-ranging topic, very relevant for what we're going through right now. The question, let's jump right into it, comes from Giuseppe in Milan. He says, heard you speak in Milan 2 years ago. I believe that was you. I was over in Madrid, but you were in Milan, so it must be yours. And the person, and of course, I lost the question. He writes, hey, the economy is getting weird. We seem to be getting a lot of first and second meetings, but it isn't going any further than that. What do I do?
Well, welcome to, first of all, Giuseppe, you are in Europe. And I think as of yesterday, you just raised interest rates again. So a little bit of a sign that, things are slowing down. So number one, take a breath. Because, right now, part of the fact that the decision making is slowing down, you can't get it to close, except the fact that it has nothing to do with you. Leaders are trying to figure out what's going on in the marketplace, and they're taking a moment to kind of get things in shape and figure out what they're going to do. So number one, tell your sales team, chances are this has nothing to do with you. So I'll start there.
Well, here's the thing, first and second meetings, I get this question a lot. I mean, in fact, I heard this again the other day. We get first meeting, but doesn't. See, here's the whole thing. Customers are only focused on what's of absolute priority to them. If it's not, and so you've really got to be zeroed in early. And this is where I think a lot of companies have to change their selling philosophy. They would kind of rush into the demo. They'd kind of rush into, hey, here's everything we can do to help you. We're early on in the sales process. False, wrong, bad idea. It's a bad idea anytime, but especially now. You really got to be on a listening tour. You got to be finding out from the customer, what is their pain point? What's the business solution that they have? And how can you craft your proposal around that? So that's why, I hate to say it, Giuseppe, that's why you're not getting that's why you're not getting past that first and second meeting, because you're not really uncovering the pain, the problem.
Yeah, and so I think a really good exercise for you to roll through with your team is, why don't you go back and get your team together, take a couple of those sales calls, and God help me, I'm going to say, do the role play. Do the role play and have your team walk through those sales calls, and then have people give insight and impact and feedback as to what they feel is working and what they feel isn't working. In other words, dissect, go back to the scene of the crime and basically break it apart. I think there's so much to be learned from why we win a deal and why we don't win a deal. But by really kind of breaking those apart, you can start to see what's working in the process and what needs to change in the process.
Yeah, that sure is. And this is another reason when you go back and do this role play, this is why, again, we've talked about this before. It is so important to be vertical prospecting and not horizontal. So many times what happens is we just take meetings because we can take meetings. Again, I heard this the other day. The guy told me, well, I have this meeting, so I got to go take it, but it doesn't go anywhere. Well, hold it, stop. If it doesn't fit your model, if it doesn't fit your ICP, if it doesn't fit your core competency, don't go down that path, because this is another reason why you're not listening, why you're not hearing, because it's all gobbledygook. You're just not understanding. You got to stay in your lane, even when times are tough, Giuseppe. And this is what a lot of companies are facing right now, because the business isn't the way it should be. So they're just running all over the place. Don't.
Yeah, I
Stay
would say
focused.
if you're not getting the meetings, if you're getting through the door the first time, but you're not getting through the door the second time, or you're not getting through the door the third time, you need to go back and look at the questioning that you're using. Mark talked a little bit about your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Far too often, we write that ideal customer profile down. I want to call on people in the financial services industry that do over, that have over 15 billion on deposits. They employ about 50 people. All of that is surface level ICP. You have to have the questions to go deeper with your ICP. Do they share their values? Can you get to the decision maker? Is the decision maker that you get to, do they really hold the purse strings? What is their sense of urgency? Why haven't they made these decisions beforehand? In their level of priorities, what difference will this make? You need to set a level of questions that once people meet the surface level ICP, dig deeper and figure out what really works underneath that.
I tell you what, I love the path that you're going down, because not only is it questions really determine your ICP, but then when you're in front of the customer, it's the questions. And it's what I'll kind of refer to as six deep questioning. Six deep questioning. What is this about? You ask that customer a question and they share with you a response. You ask them a follow-up question and they share with you something. And you run with this really to 6 levels. Now, why 6 levels? Well, studies have kind of shown that when you get 6 levels deep in a conversation, that's when you're really uncovering the issues. And see, here's the whole thing. Customers are not inviting you back beyond that first or second meeting because they say, hey, he or she is just not giving me anything. They're just not bringing me any value. And this is where it is so important. You've got to be seen as that peer, as that expert, as that person who's bringing insights that other people aren't. That's the only way you're going to stay in the game.
Yeah, I would also add that, if you're not coming back for a second or a third meeting, you may be talking to the wrong person. I know years ago when I worked in healthcare, I used to have people call on me and I would meet with them because that was the polite thing to do. I mean, that's the way that my mother raised me. I mean, somebody wants to meet with me, I give them the time, I have that time. But I wasn't the decision maker. I didn't get to pull the strings. And so I would just start avoiding them after the second meeting because there was nowhere else to go. So you have to make sure you're in the right door. You're talking to the right person, and there's truly a need there. Bryn's got a great comment here. Understanding their goals and priorities and bridging the investment in your solution to meeting their initiatives, and get them to articulate the cost of status quo, the cost of doing nothing. It's often easier to keep the process going.
See, this again is probably our number one competitor out there is status quo. Customers saying, well, there just isn't enough need to change. I mean, I'm sure, Mary, you run across this every week in customers you're speaking to and clients and salespeople and so forth. And we see this all the time, status quo. We have to get our customers to understand that status quo is not the solution, is not the answer. But the reason they stay in status quo is because we, the salesperson, have not done a good enough job of creating enough value for them. Now, here's the whole thing, Giuseppe, and this is heads up for everyone. People are far more willing in a squirrely economy that we're in right now to deal with, I got to take care of this problem versus a gain. People will always pay more and will always make the decision faster to deal with something regarding pain versus a gain.
Yeah, great. Great. Patrick Tinney says, I look for a navigator or multiple navigators getting into new companies. So absolutely, that's right. You have to be talking to the right person. The other is, Giuseppe, just because you're in Milan, you're in Europe, and if you listen to the news at all yesterday, it was just completely lit up with the fact that interest rates increased in Europe, and it's another sign that at least Europe is probably headed for a recession, and that's a signal for us to head there as well. So everything shifted in the mind of your prospect yesterday. Now they're starting to worry about what's going on in the marketplace. What does that mean? If you want to get a third meeting, you better have an educated sales force. I had a call the other night with a vendor calling on me, and we just started making a little bit of small talk at the beginning. He was asking me a little bit deeper about what I do, and I started talking about the marketplace, and he didn't know anything about interest rates. He didn't know anything about what was going on with the Fed or any of the leading or lagging indicators happening in the marketplace. Now in my mind, he's a nice guy. I don't want to do business with him because he understands his product, but he doesn't understand my world. And so you need to educate your team, not just to be an expert about the product that they sell, but they need to be an expert around the world in which your customer is trying to do business. Getting a deal to close, getting a customer to choose you over the competition is about differentiating yourself in the marketplace. And you differentiate yourself by truly being an expert.
There's something else that you said there that was really powerful. Not only do we have to be really knowledgeable as what's going on in the marketplace, but we have to be knowledgeable about what's going on in our customer's head. And see, for you, it's interest rates, the economy, and so forth. And clearly, he was not knowledgeable enough to be able to talk about those things that are incredibly relevant to you. This is, again, another piece because customers right now are looking for that level of confidence. Now, confidence sells anytime, but again, especially right now. And if we're truly fighting status quo, I got to sit there and be challenged. I'll share a quick example. In the news right now was a very outside the box thinking recently, Interstate 95 north of Philly. There was
Yeah.
a bridge that collapsed. The amount of commerce that travels on that road, phenomenal. In less than 2 weeks, they reopened that road. And they reopened that road by not building a bridge because this was a bridge that had collapsed. They really filled in the the road it was crossing over and just paved over the top. Truly outside the box thinking. Now, I share this because here's a couple of things. If you're in that I-95 corridor, if you're in the East Coast, that's very relevant. But here's something else. That was truly outside the box thinking. Right now, we have to be thinking differently to be able to win. Like you said, hey, Europe, they are virtually in a recession right now. Ooh, did I use that word? Oh, but I used
I
it
know
for
it.
somebody
I'm a
else.
little. I
I
was. I
did.
was. I was letting you go with squirrely.
I didn't use it for us, see,
Okay.
because we are not going to enter it. We are not going to enter it until Jamie Dimon says that we're not going to enter it. Okay, he's
I
fine.
hate to tell you, he's bordered on it.
No. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. The whole thing is you've got to be able to be outside the box thinking. You have got to also be knowledgeable about where the customer's going. This is, again, why you've got to stay vertical. You've got to stay in your ICP. You've got to stay in your lane. And more than ever right now, you got to be doing research ahead of the curve, ahead of the meeting to understand where your customer's coming from. Because if that salesperson had done any level of research on you, Meredith, they would have been knowledgeable enough, been able to get knowledgeable enough to be able to have a very competent conversation with you. But they
Yeah.
missed the chance. Yeah.
I'm going to argue too. Jeffrey's got some great comments up here. What question is the customer asking about you or competitors to qualify you are the right fit to work with them? If you can't answer that question, then you need to ask. I love Patrick. Oops, I just lost it. Comment here. Understanding the stock market and geopolitics means you're speaking just like a CEO or CFO. Patrick, the reason I love this comment is because you have to right now speak like a CEO or CFO. I don't care if you sell to the head of the chief revenue officer, or you sell to the the purchasing division head in today's marketplace, you're selling to the CFO, because right now everything is fighting its way into the budget, and CEOs are looking for places to save money and looking for places to make cuts. So you better be able to sell at that level if you want to be successful in today's marketplace.
Boy, there's so much truth in that, because in good times, it's amazing how lower level people have a tremendous amount of flexibility in the budget. But as times get tough, guess what? Those decisions get pushed further and further upstream. And this is exactly what's happening right now. I mean, I'm seeing CFOs, I'm seeing people with C's in their titles having a much bigger say in anything and everything. So guess what? You've got to be able to converse at their level. And again, this is where so many salespeople are falling out, because they're talking about the product. And remember, people with a C in their title, they don't care about the product. They could care less about the product. What they want is, they want a solution to the challenges that they're facing. The product is just a can of soup on the shelf. It doesn't matter what can of soup they get, but it's the solution. Help them solve that business need. That is what will get you in the door and keep you in the door.
Yeah, and how will you paint that story? Do they see how working with you is going to take them from, A to Z? It's going to get them to the point of, of where they, really where they want to go. Giuseppe, another thing that I might do is, if you have a good relationship with any of those prospects that you've not been able to get back through the door with, ask like, hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything else. We're trying to get better as a sales team. We're trying to improve. We want to make sure that our product fits the market. Why did this deal go cold? Like what's happening there? And can you give us any kind of insight? I find that asking customers really tells you better than anything what's going on in the mind of the customer.
Well, and I'm going to add to that right now. We got to understand, what is the financial status of the company, and it's something as basic as what's their fiscal year? What is their fiscal year? Because again, I encountered this past week. I was working with a number of salespeople. They're attempting to make their quarter end number, and I was asking them this simple question: so, where's the customer at in terms of their fiscal year? And they go, I don't know. I go, hold it. You better find out. Now, this is what's interesting. People say, well, how do you find that out for a privately held company? You ask, and you sit there and you ask them questions. This is what I love doing. I want to ask these types of questions early on in the selling process. These are questions in that first and second call, because what I find is that people are much more forthcoming in information. Once you've established a little bit of a relationship, they will be forthcoming in sharing with you that information. If you wait and don't have that information and try to get down to the negotiation process, this kind of takes us over to this whole price issue, you're toast. You are late to the game, and you are going to get burned. You see, you got to get all that information out on the table early on to avoid being trampled in the negotiation. Now, for Giuseppe, you're not even close to that point. But I bring this up because here's what I find. If customers begin to feel that you are coming at them with a strategic solution that's timely driven, this is what's also key regarding price and getting that decision. Because again, people will sit there and say, oh, hey, yeah, that's great. I like your idea. But we don't need it now. Guess what? They're not going to buy. Every proposal we put across the table right now has to be time driven, tied into helping them solve a problem that they have right now. I call it the burning platform. We've got to find their burning platform. And if we can, no sale.
Yeah. Bryn has some great info here on ChatGPT. Mark, why don't you share her comments?
Well, her comment here is that ChatGPT can help with social listening. Feed it links to posts and company blogs, and ask to give it the top 10 Oh, I like this. You go to ChatGPT and just ask what are the top 10 priorities the company and person has based on the content. Now, here's the whole thing. Remember, when ChatGPT gives you information, this is a starting point. This isn't a finishing point. This is very, very key. Don't sit there and think for a moment that you can take exactly and throw it word for word. But what does this do? It gets you thinking. ChatGPT can help you become very knowledgeable very quickly. And you can ask ChatGPT, Bard, any of these AI sites questions that are going to help get you information that's going to help get you into these senior level people, because again, this is where you got to be going. Wow, there's so much we could be sharing on this, and we're getting a ton of comments. This is
I want to put Preston's comment up here because he's got a great question. What's the best method for selling when your price is on the high end compared to your competitors? I assume showing value is what works best. Please advise. Preston, I call it, there's a couple of things. Number one is you have to have chosen the right ICP. If that is critical. I think there's two reasons that we fail on price. Number one is because we didn't choose the right prospect. It was funny. Mark and I were in Dallas together, and I said something about Walmart, and Mark said, you don't darken the doors of Walmart. Well, it's one thing Mark doesn't know about me. I'm cheap as a human being can be. I am so cheap. I don't spend money on clothes. I don't spend money on jewelry. I don't buy anything that it isn't on sale. I am cheap, cheap, cheap. So you could try to sell me a $700 pair of shoes. I don't care what you try to say. I'm never buying that. I'm never paying that kind of money. So I would be the wrong prospect for certain things. So so you got to choose the right ICP. The second is you have to sell the risk and value, and you have to sell the risk and value whether people ask you for it or not. For anybody who's old enough out there, I call this the Paul Harvey method. And the Paul Harvey method is you got to sell the rest of the story. Quick example. Years ago, I had an accounting software firm who was losing like crazy to third world competitors. And the CEO called me and said, my salespeople want me to lower my price. I've got no more margin. What do I do? I said, do people buy your product? Did they pay for it? And he said, yes. I said, why? He said, I don't know. We went out and we asked customers, and customers told us they realized that technically it cost more, but the truth was they felt like they were saving money. He always answered the telephone. He'd been in business 20 years. They were tired of his competitors selling all the time. Everybody in his company spoke English. They were so tired of talking to somebody in some country they couldn't understand. His group would come on site. They would customize the software if it needed to be. And the reasons went on. All we did was bake that into the sales process. Understand when you're comparing X to Y, this is what you get with our company. So when you cost more, there's a reason you cost more. It's not just because you're greedy. It's because you're doing extra things. The customer doesn't know that until you tell them. So if you choose the right prospect and you sell the risk and value, whether people ask or not, you'll take price off the table.
And value means different things to different people in the same company. You can go in at the C level and they may pay 5 times more for something that down at street level that person would not pay for, because they see a different outcome. They see a different, and it fits their strategic needs differently. So this is another key piece. Price changes. Don't think price is uniform within a company. Price changes based on the person. Hey, time is running by. We could run with this topic forever, but we got a great book that just came out. Tiffany Bova just wrote and released a great book called The Experience Mindset. If you don't know Tiffany Bova, you got to. She is the sales evangelist at Salesforce, and her insights are absolutely mind-blowing. I had her on my podcast.
I saw that you had just had her on your podcast. I need to go listen to the episode.
Yeah, and she is a great friend, and I'll tell you what, we had a great conversation after the show was over. We should have recorded it because, it just the insights. But here's the whole thing. It's about creating the experience, and the experience begins in the selling process. Again, this ties right back to the question we had this week from Giuseppe. So absolutely fantastic. Hey, before we jump to the lightning round, we should talk a little bit about the mastermind group coming up, right?
Yeah, if you love the conversation here, gosh, there's so many questions that we haven't had a chance to get to in today's episode. Think about joining us at the Sales Logic Mastermind. Wow, we have this unbelievable community that we are creating where every month we are going to get together. We are going to focus on education, accountability, support, and community. Whether you are struggling in the sales process, whether you are blowing your goals out, this is where we are going to focus on the cutting edge information you need to take your sales to the next level.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, this past week, Meredith and I, we've been working like crazy on it. We got a lot more, but this really is. It keeps with every meeting we have, it keeps getting better and better. So look for this within the next week or so. We're going to be able to get you signed up and in it. It's going to be outstanding. So anyway, ready for the lightning round? Ready? Top 10 ways to get out of the price war. Go.
Yes. Number 1, choose your ideal customer profile 6 layers deep.
2, get out of having conversations with low-level people. Get further up the food chain.
Number 3, ask better questions to really understand the pain point.
Number 4, tie whatever it is you want to time driven. It's got to be time sensitive. Otherwise, no deal.
Number 5, use case studies and show how you have been able to help other customers save money, make money, gain peace of mind simply by using your product or service. Social proof.
Number 6, keep a full pipeline. If it's the only deal you have, you're going to get scared. You're going to cut your price. But if your pipeline's full, you're going to be far more confident.
Yeah, if you lose the deal on price, use the 11th hour letter. Reach back out and say, if at any moment you are not happy, please know we would love to have you as a customer. Sometimes people choose a cheaper price. They end up not being happy. Make sure they come back through your door.
Number 8, if you fail to believe one bit in the solution you can provide, the customer will pick up on that immediately. Your confidence must extend over to create customer confidence.
All right.
You do one more, I do one more, we close it down.
Number 9, use the Paul Harvey method. Sell the risk and value. Whether people ask you for it or not, sell it in the conversation, put it in the proposal, make sure people know everything they're getting for the price they're paying that you're offering that your competitors are not.
When you put the price across the table, you never ask them this is the price or ask them if this is okay. No. It is absolute confidence. Remember, the customer is investing in a solution to help them achieve a better outcome. With that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend because, hey, it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. Look for information on the Sales Logic Mastermind. But until then, we'll see you right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic. You are the most amazing audience. Thank you so much for participating. We'll see you next week.